Hey, what is it, guys? So this is going to be a bit of a different video than what I usually do. So I've been doing judging quite recently, a lot more than probably playing. That's why I've been doing absolute garbage at events. Yeah, that's the lie that I'm going to tell myself on a regular basis. But this is not a usual video. This is actually going to be a bit more of an unscripted one of the judging experience that I've actually had over the past couple of days, if not weeks, months. God, it's been longer than I actually thought it would be. But this one's more on the store that I went to in Castleford. So this is going to be a little bit of a shameless plug of a different Yu-Gi-Oh store that I've been to. So the Yu-Gi-Oh store that I went to in Castleford is called Living Realms. It's a nice, lovely place that I've been to on quite a few times. Been there, had beers with people, had a great laugh, laughed about being shot with a pellet gun in a completely different store, unrelated. Um, but it's a very nice store. I was asked to head judge there at the start of the week, and it kind of went from there because all the other judges went off to judge at different stores. So it was me and one other individual that we have decent-ish judging experience. He was more to shadow me. I was the head judge for the event. I'm going to try and leave out names as much as I can, just in case you guys don't want me to specifically talk about yours. You know who you are in the story because you all went to Castleford and all know each other. Um, but to bring it up, the event went okay. There was lots and lots of game losses for several different reasons. I think the most common one was actually deck errors because um, since I'm kind of versed a bit more in deck checking, I let the guy that was shadowing me that day, who was also the floor judge, do the deck checking, and I don't think a single round passed where there wasn't something wrong with the decks. I think the most recent one that came to mind was there was a Fluandries versus Exosystem matchup, and I think the guy from that was playing Flu just forgot to take out all his side decks. So after he presented it to his opponent, we did the deck check, and I got called over by the floor judge saying that there's numerous errors in it. And I said, well, the first thing that we need to do is check that everything on the list is correct, that there isn't more cards than the side and the extra, and then we can figure out what's happened. Thankfully, there was no like malicious thing in there. It was just that his side deck was still in within his main, which could have affected some of the matchups. I think one of the cards that was in his side, that was in his main, was Dimension Fissure, I think it was, which I don't think matters that much against the Exorcism matchup, but unfortunately, that happened. And I think that was the major one that came to mind. All the others, they were kind of minor. One player, we felt really, really bad for him because he'd handed over his deck box, and there were some cards that were in his deck box that shouldn't be there. One or two of them were burningly obvious that they weren't actually part of his deck. He probably just did a trade and put them in his deck box. The other two were kind of harder to tell, so unfortunately that kind of sucks. So yeah, that was one of the most common things that actually happened there. The second one that kind of came up quite a lot was slow play, and we were both kind of debating with each other on how long we should class it as slow play. And I think the rule that we came up in mind for it is if it crosses our mind to ask whether or not a duelist is taking too long to play out his turn, then that probably is enough of a grounds for it because we give leeway quite a lot to slow play, especially you all will know as individuals that when it comes to you playing Yu-Gi-Oh, time passes quicker than you would think it would. So if you think as a person that's not actually playing the game has a decent amount of time passed, probably has. Sometimes I do kind of try and encourage them at the end of the round. If I didn't give them a warning for it that they need to hurry up, I was a bit more lenient in round one because I tried to give out more cautions than anything else. After round two, I felt that I'd given out way too many cautions, so it was just a case of actual warnings, time extensions, things like that. So you kind of feel a bit bad as a judge, especially when you know that some of the players there are not as competitive as others. But it's the whole thing of what I tried to explain to a lot of them was that if I give leeway for one, I have to give leeway for all. So it's rules for everyone. I know that it might seem that I'm being a bit harsh because you are a slower player, but even then, I've probably taken that into mind because I kind of know you a little bit personally. But even then, sorry, taking a minute to think about an entire play, especially when it's a simpler deck, I think is a bit too long. Especially when there is kind of an open board and very few plays that you can take because there's only 2 or 3 cards in your hand. I know that you're trying to win as quick as you can, but still, time is nobody's friend in this game, especially when there were a lot of runic players there. Time is nobody's friend. But yeah, that was one of the other things that kind of came up. And I guess the final one from like the gameplays that people did was not reading their cards correctly, which I gave a little bit of leeway on this one because the best example of this was there was a nice lovely chap that was playing Drytron, where he was playing Arcana Force 21 in there. That man single-handedly got a judge call every single round because it was an old copy of Arcana Force 21. I think it was the ulti version, and people were confused on like how Arcana Force monsters work because not everyone played since the dawn of time. So he was playing the version of Drytron where you summon Arcana Force 21 if you go first, and then it has this nice lovely effect where I think if it lands heads, it turn skips. You tribute 2 monsters and skip your opponent's turn. So I first got dragged over whether or not the turn is actually counted or not. Then I got dragged over on another basis where they asked if the turn skip is every turn he can do it or every so often, and it was something to say the least. A lot of it was kind of like what I said to him. Since yours is an older copy of Arcana Force 21, can you at least have like a screenshot or something on your phone so that if your opponent asks for an updated version of it, it kind of speeds up the thing instead of closing and opening neurons, as well as calling over a judge every couple of minutes because they want to have the up-to-date text on it. But that was really it. There wasn't any other major things that kind of happened there. It was all in all quite nice as an event experience. There was only really a handful of ruling things that kind of came up. And I think the main one that came to mind was actually there was a pearly player, and he was playing against Plunder Runic, some Plunder Patrol variant. And to explain the situation, the pearly player activates Noir's effect, targeting Blackbeard, and the opponent chains Blackbeard's effect to tag out. And they'd resolved it incorrectly because they both thought that it just loses the target and Blackbeard doesn't get summoned. So I kind of had to do a bit of like an explanation on here. So for you guys that don't know, I'll bring up the picture now. Blackbeard has the effect of targeting one monster you control, and then you special summon the according ship from your extra deck that shares the attribute of a monster on your opponent's field or in the graveyard, and then the monster that was targeted equips to it. So because of that, it means that regardless if Blackbeard leaves the field or not, the ship gets summoned. And the second part that kind of matters is the whole locations thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! So I was a bit unsure about this, so I didn't actually rule it specifically that way because it took a bit longer for me to double check on this. But it was pointed out later on when I was at Spoons with a few of the other guys from there that are qualified judges as well, where they said that because Blackbeard changes location and it's no longer in the monster zone and goes to the spell and trap card zone, Blackbeard will not be returned back to the extra deck because it's no longer considered the same monster, because since it's changed location, it's now Blackbeard, the spell and trap monster. Yeah, we gotta love Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Is great at things like that. And that was like the major one that came to mind. Everything else was pretty alright. For anyone that's interested in what was being played there was lots and lots of Fire King, Snake Eyes. There was Exo Sisters, which nearly ended up winning and making it to the final. I think the only misplay that she did is that she made Zeus and didn't use its effect that turn. The reason why it really mattered for her to activate the effect is because there was a Flamberge and a few other things on the field, except she'd activate the effect of Caspatel earlier in the turn, and Caspatel is an Abyss Dweller. So if she Zeused at that point, her opponent had nothing and he was just top decking. So even with the fact of it being like a 1-card starter, it still worth it. The fact that your opponent's stuff's in the grave and they've just lost out on loads of stuff because the Flamberge was still left up. He did do some loot plays. It got Zeused away. However, it was enough for him to keep on clawing his way back into the game. So that was kind of a bit sad. But beyond that, there isn't really much else to say. I would recommend anyone that has not been over to Living Realms to go over there and check it out. I will link their website as well as their events page in the top corner. It should be there-ish now. If not, it'll be in the description below. But it is a very friendly place. I have known quite a few of the people there for years. Rulings are great. Sometimes they are wrong, but less people judge over there than probably other events that I've been to. They're more into playing. I'm more into spectating and learning how to judge correctly, which even then I'm still not infallible. I still make a lot of mistakes. So yeah, that is a thing. But beyond that, overall, it was pretty good. So shameless plug actually now for Geek Retreat Halifax. Sorry guys that I did this at the end, but I have to give it to the other star at this point because we are talking about it the whole time. So I'll be signing out. Peace.